meeting. Um, First thing on the agenda is to review the meeting minutes from last month, March 8th. We did a organizational vote for Coco to join us as our clerk. And it's a fairly short meeting dealing with mostly fine art. Paid one bill and discuss the town board resolution regarding wetlands and special permit application amendments. So I didn't see anything off with this. I just wasn't sure who. I know Carla had attended via Zoom. I think Meg was the only other person in attendance last month, and it was just the board.
Wasn't Amber here?
Was Amber here last month?
No.
I didn't think so.
Okay. Okay, that's right.
Yeah. All right, so I make a motion to accept the March 8th minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll accept that as a yes.
Yes.
We have a bunch of correspondence. It's part of the agenda. A lot of it has dealt with the fine arts minor subdivision closeout, which we are now just waiting on the final recording of the map. And otherwise, just dealing with some wetlands applications. Did get one question regarding the Fowler property from Matt Sherman. But anyone who wants it can get a copy of this. We have one invoice to pay, and that's for EHA for professional services in the month of March. And that dealt with talking to Gail Wickham about the White subdivision, some discussion about conflict of interest on the board. And again, with the White application. 4.3 hours, total 1,612, less our courtesy discount, and the total is 1,209.37. I think it's money well spent. So I make a motion to accept the April 11th EHA invoice for $1,209.37. Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it for a business meeting. Current applications, fine art, as I mentioned, we're waiting for the proof of map recording. They have until June for that. That should not be a problem. I signed the maps last week. We're still waiting on information from Bloom. They have until June 11th. The Cassock Minor subdivision, I reached out to the applicant's attorney asking for a scalable PDF of the site plan, which Joe Lombardi had requested because the one with the PDF copy of the application was not readable. And since he hasn't been here in a few weeks, months, he hasn't been getting the paper copies. Maybe in the future, we have to think of mailing them to him. But he should be able to work off of a PDF as long as it's scalable. And that's one of the things we do ask for in the application. So hopefully we'll get that in the next couple of days. The base lot line adjustment, we've received proof of the map filing, a signed copy. And Valerie wasn't able to get a PDF together, but I know we have a scanner. We should be able to put that together. Still waiting on the White major subdivision. We did receive a couple emails from Carla Freivogel. It doesn't seem like much is moving ahead there as much as she would like it to. We're still waiting on the town, the county, and even the CPF board to say whether they want to pursue this further. So until we hear something, there's nothing to talk about. And Robert, I mention this every month, Matt Sherman wants to wait to get further ahead with the health department before submitting additional information on the application. We have a handful of wetlands applications in front of us, but right now, only one has been deemed complete. And that's the No Name Road LLC wetlands application. But we do have a representative from the Goodson application. We received the updated maps. They went to the town, you copied us on, thank you, but they went to the town board. We haven't heard next steps from the town board. Are you waiting for a revised statement from us?
I'll check with them. I know your last statement was that you couldn't really make a ruling because you didn't have enough information.
But now we have a
I
new
would say go
plan.
ahead and review that with the new map and then let us know your recommendation.
Okay, so when is the, I know the public hearing wasn't closed, it remained open.
29th is our next meeting.
Okay,
We have 2 work sessions.
okay, so we'll get something to you then before the 29th.
That would be great.
You joined us. Is there anything you'd like to say about the application?
No, in fact, I'm mostly hoping that I'll get a chance for it reviewed by the board again to perhaps discuss,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Martha Reichert from Toomey Latham. I represent Scott Goodson on this application. On April 1st, we submitted updated surveys to the town board pursuant to the advice that we were given at the town board meeting. I spoke to Reed Karen as well about that we were submitting it. And so my hope is that I would have a chance to speak with whoever on the planning board is sort of handling the reviewing or it's their area. So we could go over the new survey just because this application has a complicated history. It's, what the current owners are seeking to do is legalize something that was built 2 owners ago. At this point, it's almost 15 years ago that the structures were built. So we now have a flagged wetlands boundary. In prior applications and prior permits that were issued on this particular property, mean high water had been traditionally used. In fact, our initial letter of denial that was issued by Lori Beard Raymond had used mean high water, which is why we didn't have a flagged wetland survey before. So I wanted the board to understand that aspect. That was, we were told.
If I may,
Sure.
I'm a little surprised by that because it's been a requirement for 15, 20 years that it be delineated by an environmental consultant.
Absolutely.
I'm an architect. All my applications always had to have it, so.
I
I'm a
100%
little
agree.
surprised.
I thought it was unusual. The letter of denial was issued prior to my client purchasing the property. It was the initial letter of denial was issued to the prior owner, and my client bought the property knowing that he would have to come in and legalize these issues. So I completely agree with you. I am the former Southampton Town Conservation Board attorney when I was in the town attorney's office, and I thought it was unusual that everything had been taken from mean high water. But now that we have submitted the application and had the planning board's comments, we of course went and we got the wetlands line flagged. It doesn't differ very much from mean high water. It's probably about anywhere from 5 to 7, maybe 10 feet further inland. But because of that, it does sort of change the initial setbacks as they were reviewed, going back to every single letter of
So the
denial.
square footage of incursions increased
The square footage of the incursions hasn't increased because the initial issues were, so 2 prior owners ago, they built an extension of their pool patio, and atop of that pool patio extension, they built a stone barbecue and a fireplace. So when my client bought the property, he was told, we can't obtain a new certificate of occupancy for the property until this gets legalized. I guess in not wanting to wait for that process, they decided to consummate the transaction and transfer the property. But my client knew that he would have to come before the boards and legalize what hadn't been legalized by the prior owners.
I did recall that the town board had requested of you or your client, what they'd be willing to cut back, remove to make the incursion less, if anything?
Actually, when I asked the town board at the last meeting, what they were interested in terms of mitigation, they said they wouldn't discuss it until they had a flag wetlands line and it had revised comments from the planning board.
Okay, in our first round of comments, we had actually asked that of the applicant, so.
Well, so
What is there, can I ask you, what will the Goodson, Scott Goodson allow if you remove the barbecue, the hot tub that's encouraging, what, is there something he's willing to give up?
Well, so what I wanted to find out from this board is, are you looking for him to give something up or to add mitigation in the sense of revegetation? So I really was looking for guidance, and that was also why I was hoping to have perhaps a discussion, not at a meeting like this, but I'm happy to have it here, of what exactly the reviewing boards, correct, you're acting in an advisory capacity, what they felt would be sufficient mitigation, because again, this is sort of an unusual thing. We haven't increased, there's no effluent, there's no utilities to these, well, leaving aside the hot tub that was built. With respect to the pool patio extension, it's, about 400 square feet. The barbecue and the fireplace sit atop the patio itself. So, I'm looking to this board for guidance in terms of what they think would be appropriate mitigation in other jurisdictions.
Most applicants offer something up front, and so,
Sure,
But
most
We're
applicants-
not trying to drive your project and tell you what you have to take out or what you have to give up or what you have to do. We want you to come in and offer, and I don't think we're in a position to advise you on what we expect.
that's fair. I think when you're coming in with a proposed application, and if there's someone who I can speak with, a member of the board for whom this is an assigned area, I would be happy to discuss what would be appropriate.
People who wrote the report are Reed Karen, Mark Kasich, and myself. And
Okay.
We spent quite a bit of time on it. So
See, with this case, there was two different surveys. First time we had two different surveys.
four surveys.
Well,
Many,
those
many
were
different
from
surveys.
Department files, but, and it was about 25 feet difference in the two surveys. And
Ab-
you said, right, so 22 to 27 feet, I think, according to Nathan Taft's new survey with both 75 and 100 lines on it.
Right.
So that made it very difficult. What's the story with the gazebo now? 'Cause we
That
just
is,
got the
that
letter.
has been legalized through a letter of warning from the DEC, so it's no longer an issue.
It's been legalized by the DEC. and
Yes.
Not by the town.
Well, the town granted the 10 by 10 exception back in 2010, I believe. So again, the town board had asked that we ensure that the DEC signed off on it, and that was also what was within the letter of denial, and we've done that. That's been resolved.
Reed, do you know anything about the town granting the 100 square foot exclusion, wetlands exclusion for the gazebo?
I think they did.
Is that the basis?
I don't know, actually. I don't remember now, actually. I mean, in theory, if that's, in theory, they get one 10 by 10 exemption. I've not seen anything that said that was the specific thing that I remember, but I can take a look.
It's contained within the letter of denial.
I've seen it.
Oh, it's in Lori's
It's in the
denial letter.
denial
About-
letter.
The thing about the gazebo is that the DEC required it to be landward of the 14-foot curve.
Correct.
However, it is seaward of the 14-foot curve, exactly,
So
but-
when,
What
But
happened
they
there?
got a, I believe they got a letter of, well.
it's called a
you can
warning
explain
letter,
it.
but it
Yeah,
resolves it.
yeah.
So, I mean, again, my clients did not own the property when this happened, so I can't speak to the specifics of the survey, but I guess in 2010, it was based on the survey by Otto Van Tuyl. And that survey showed the gazebo being landward of the 14-foot contour. We provided a new survey from Nathan Taft, Corin Taft, and that shows that it's seaward of the 14-foot contour. Again, not my client's fault, because we all rely on surveyors to take accurate measurements. We're not contesting its location, and so we legalized it through the DEC.
Marcus, can I just ask, since it wasn't, I didn't handle this application, but the last survey that they submitted, what was your opinion on that last one?
This one this week, they
Like,
submitted, it looks
yeah.
good, looks good.
Yeah, we trust the survey by aerial surveying. Again,
I couldn't zoom in on it, though. you know.
I have an actual full-size copy if you'd like to see it right now. Hard
I would-
copies
I
were
would-
submitted.
Okay, Coco, do we have paper copies of the Goodson Wetlands application?
The latest one.
I called the town clerk's office and I asked if copies should be sent to the planning board, and they told me they would distribute it to you.
They are usually the ones who distribute it. We have a town clerk who's been away for 2 weeks and a new assistant who's still learning the job. So we're,
That might be why.
our hands are a little tied right now on that.
I have an extra copy though, if you guys would like to look at it now, in case Coco doesn't have it.
Okay.
So
Ben, so would you agree conceptually though, that your client got a discount when purchasing the property because of the outstanding violations?
no, he really did not. There was a $5,000 credit. And at this point, he is 3 surveys in, wetlands flaggings, attorneys, multiple hearings. I would say he did not get a discount and he's still paying for it, considerable expense. You know, it was represented to him when he purchased it that this would be simple.
It was represented by the seller, not by the town.
Correct. It was represented by the seller who had assured him that everything was lined up for a wetlands permit to go.
Well, his
the-
attorney on the sale should have probably advised him that $5,000 was not much,
Correct.
given
And I
the-
was not
the-
that attorney.
right?
So there's been, you know, sort of a confluence of several different things. The fact that he's here in good faith, coming to legalize these structures, which were represented to him that it would not be a big deal. But here we are, like I said, and then we had the survey issue where we were not able to get in a queue with Nate Corwin for him to put on topo and the other things that were missing from the existing survey that my clients had when they purchased the property. So in order to speed things up, we said, why don't we get a new survey? We used aerial surveying, and from the get-go, it became just a really awful experience because we quickly saw that the survey was not reliable, especially with respect to the mean high water line. You know, and I brought that to Lori Beard Raymond's attention, and that's why we sort of used a hybrid of where we used it for the topo, but we used the mean high water line shown on the original Nate Corwin's survey just to get to the letter of denial process. And then again, you know, because we sort of lost that institutional knowledge when she left and Chris had left as well, they had discussed all of this internally. You know, we're before different people, different board, different building inspector. And so I feel at least at this point, we now have a survey that I, as an attorney, feel comfortable appearing before all of you to, you know, say, I trust this survey, I trust this mean high water line. We had the wetlands boundary flagged by Sean Barron, who I believe to also be a very reputable environmental consultant. So, well, and I've known him as well from some of my previous dealings for.
So what I recommend then is let us get the copy of the drawing. We'll write the report. We have till the 29th and we'll get a copy to you in advance once we issue to the town board. In the interim, if you think of any remediation items you'd like to offer, they would be greatly appreciated. We'll certainly take them under consideration.
All right. Well, again, and one of the things that I wanted to sort of discuss with this board was the type of remediation that is most beneficial for the protection of the wetlands, right? Is it that you want a non-fertilization, non-disturbance buffer of a certain area? Do you want the
We're not
addition
allowed
of
to
native?
fertilize on shut ground, so.
Well, fine. So a non-disturbance so that native vegetation continues to flourish into an expanded area. You know, do you want revegetation? You know, again, it's one of those things where I can certainly propose something if that's what you'd like to start the conversation, but I was hoping to get feedback from the board for what they think would be the most appropriate.
I don't know that I have an opinion, and I want to look at the drawings and consider a little bit more. So,
Okay.
But so this report on this property has been done by the three of you and it's already been, it's turned in or it's.
Right.
We
but
turned
it-
it in
You saw
months
it?
ago, but it was, we said we can't make a decision because it was, the information was so whacked. So,
But in your observations, like at that time, you probably would have already, observed things that needed to be remediated in that report.
Well,
Well,
the issue is there's several, there were several things that were done that were violations. And then after the owner bought the property, this current owner, Mr. Goodson, he, I think in good faith, without under poor advice from a contractor, went in and put an additional violation, which was the jacuzzi, whatever it is.
The deck with the hot tub on top of
The
it.
deck with a
yes.
hot tub. And so we said, okay, well, just so you can go before go to get a wetlands permit. Sorry, I'm suffering with a bad cold. I'm not very smart today. We said, we can get us a survey and we can give you a permit. Well, they brought in the survey that at the time everybody thought was reasonable, the aerial surveying survey. And we gave them a permit, which subsequently, when we realized how wrong it was, we had to, pull, what do you call it?
Revoke.
Revoke. Yes. Thank you. And so now they've got an additional violation to the ones that were there when he bought the property. I do think Mr. Goodson's operating in good faith. I think that somebody should have told him that $5,000 was not enough, but that's between him and his lawyer. The question is just, what do we do going forward? Because he clearly, there were serious violations. He bought the property knowing there were violations. There was an additional violation, and now we're in a situation where we have to figure out what's a reasonable trade-off. I don't recall in my adult state what the situation is with their septic system, their sanitary system.
Let me look at the survey. It's shown now.
Is
It's
it an IA system? I don't think it is, right?
No, it's not.
no, it's not an IA system, but I do think at least it has a septic tank. Let me just look at it to confirm.
Yeah, and I'm sure it does, given the age of the building. I mean, maybe, you can offer whatever you want. It is the wetlands. It is the kind of area that people like IA systems.
favorably on past applications.
Of
I mean,
course.
that's certainly the kind of thing that the planning board might, or the town board might have asked for. If this were a wetlands permit, I don't know. But like I said, I don't think it's our position to necessarily ask for something. I don't know. I defer to Ian on.
Can I offer something? Just first I just want to ask again, Reed and Ann and Marcus. So in your preliminary observations, you probably made some references to things you saw and things that perhaps needed to be changed. But then the stumbling block was the variation in the surveys, right? And you can't just take like pieces of survey number 3 and put it with survey number 4. I may be wrong on how many surveys you had done, but you can't take parts of one survey and another and try to put them together to make sense of it. I was just thinking,
Coca, we really should just get the full-size plan. I mean, my eyes are really not that great.
Okay, I'll try and enlarge it.
Okay.
No, I mean,
Oh.
they've been submitted. Let's just distribute them when we get the copies.
okay.
I was just gonna say, if we can't, in our role, tell your client what to do, obviously, you've done this sort of thing before. So could you go back to other projects that you have supervised or helped and say, well, in the last 3 or 4 projects, we've done X, Y, and Z. Let's put that together and put that in the proposal. Like, I feel like I feel for him, all the frustration and everything that he's gone through and inheriting this house. And obviously they weren't clear with him on all he'd have to, do and the expenditures. But it's kind of the client's responsibility, at least I feel, to come prepared, let me have all the ducks in a row and then present it. So maybe you could depend on past experience and advising him.
Sure.
All
we'll
my
look for it.
clients, I've never had one buy a piece of property without having a title search done with all certificate documents. occupancies available. And if they weren't, if there were violations, then they were always hammering the purchaser, the buyer, the seller
Sure.
to knock down the price and substantially. And so there were substantial credits.
I absolutely agree. I also think that, perhaps we can point out that this is an extraordinary real estate market in the last 2 years where it has been sellers who really control the terms. But notwithstanding that, my client did his due diligence and that he knew that he would have to take care of these violations. I think
Okay.
that in
So-
terms of an IA system, though, in my past experience and as my counsel to conservation boards, there needs to be a nexus between what is being asked for in terms of an IA system, right? There has been no increase in bedrooms. There are no bathrooms, there are no utilities.
That's fair enough. Then we may just advise the town board, well, we're not hearing anything, so maybe the gazebo goes, maybe the hot tub goes, maybe the barbecue goes. Let's shrink the size of the patio. Let's bring it more in compliance with the letter of the code when the house was constructed. And when the entities went in, which were violations, because maybe they really should be pulled back to meet that letter of that code.
And also if the septic is aged, there's really no good reason to have an aged septic. I mean, even if he's not increasing the
Absolutely.
bedrooms, it's always a benefit to put in an IA.
Well, and that's why
Exactly,
I'm glad
yeah.
we're having this dialogue about what you consider as a board to be the nexus between what was built and what the proper mitigation would be. And I have to go back and talk to my client about an IA system because that is a significant upgrade.
As Ann said, that
Improvement.
has been looked favorably.
Of
and
course.
Meg can attest to that because she's on the board and she knows that.
Okay, well, please, we'll get the drawings, we'll write our report and get it to you shortly.
Yeah.
And if you have come up with some ideas in the interim that you and your client agree to, please get them to us.
Sure. And then if I have any questions, who should I direct it to on the planning board?
You can send it to the chair, me, or to Coco and she'll distribute it,
Okay.
or to both of them. I guess we'll get it out.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, the other three that we have on the list have not been deemed complete yet. And so there's really no sense in talking about them.
Oh, you're on the back. I was wondering.
Yeah. So
What is deemed complete? Does that just means that we've,
that the application is complete, that all the components that they're required and which will assist the review are present.
I thought the 42 Gardeners Bay, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that was complete because we received final.
No, it's not quite complete. I can't remember what that one was missing. It was missing maybe deed covenants or, oh, and also there were, if you read the application, the attorney, John Bennett, had left a lot of things like room count and square footage on the application, which, because it's a special permit, it's significant, had put down not applicable.
Got it.
And because they were not in the wetlands area. And that one required both required both a wetlands and a special permit.
That's
So
determined by- who determines if something's complete? I'm sorry, is that the process question? Read the
Yeah.
permit side. Okay, cool. Great. Just trying to understand how the process works. Thank you.
yeah, and
And
there's
that's
on the application, there's a list of things in the instructions towards the end that say what's required. And there are also some things that, I guess common sense would say are required. We're actually just trying, Meg is working on a checklist and I guess a couple of us are working on it, the town clerk and the building department, trying to come up with a checklist so that we can streamline the process somewhat.
All right, so the only other item I have on our agenda, it's back to under other business, is Reed brought to my attention that the Fridwin has submitted an amended site plan and that it has to be reviewed for changes. They built a retaining wall right across Shore Road, which are right along it. They said they weren't in the first round. Now it's 4 foot high or higher. There's no access through it. We don't know anything about the engineering, if it has a proper toe for structural reasons, all this other stuff. And there were some other changes. The only, and Rita and I have gone back and forth a little bit on this. I'm hesitant for the planning board to jump in and start re-examining changes without direction from the town board. So especially as something on this magnitude, I think we would need something official to allow us to do that. If we are going to do that, we need a proper amount of time. What's the usual 45 days or 30 days or something to make it possible for us to do this?
We discussed this today. You should be getting an official request to review. Not sure if it's going to be a review to see if the scope has changed enough to warrant an amendment to the plan. So we'll receive an official request.
Okay,
Aren't they trying to open up by this summer?
they are, but they supposedly made some changes even last fall and decided not to bring it to anyone's attention until just a couple weeks ago.
So these things that you're describing are done.
They built them, they changed, I guess from what I've learned. the
Some are
type of set-
done, some are done, some are proposed.
Fuji and to another system which has different health department requirements. They made that choice on their own. They had to go back to the health department to get that application amended. Then they put in this wall claiming it's something the health department required. It's a whole bunch of games going on and they want to get open and they're starting to yell at everyone saying, why are you slowing us down? And we're like, well, you knew about this since last fall. Why are you just bringing it to our attention now? And so it's a bit of a game.
Yeah, I mean, there were, as near as I can tell, and we're still trying to tease this out. They told me as early as last summer, Rob Coburn told me that they were changing to a Hydrotech instead of a Fuji because, you know, he had some reason that they were more efficient. Well, apparently they started installing it and didn't tell the health department until December. And at which point, you know, the health department said they had to redesign it because they have very different requirements for the two systems. And one of the requirements was that they put in this taller, retaining wall right on the, very close to the road. I think it's 3.5 feet, or maybe it's more than that. It might be 6-7 feet from the road. But so now they have this retaining wall, and it was supposed to have steps, and apparently those have been eliminated, even though they're on the revised proposed plans. And those steps were a big part of the fire department plan in case there was ever a fire there. And now all pedestrian traffic and if there was a fire, any access to the building on foot is going to have to go through the driveway, which is obviously not ideal. And that currently I'm not sure, we're trying to figure out how high it's going to end up above grade, but currently, a lot of the wall is 6 feet tall. I have a feeling it'll end up under 4 feet if they grade to it, but it's still a significant wall and cuts off access.
It's my recollection, there's only 2.5 or 3 feet from the curb to the wall in some areas. I only drove by once about 2 weeks ago. I just noted how close it was to the road. I don't know that there's really room to burn or plant it out. And then the other part is, people parking on that road, they have to swing their door open. They have to step out onto a shoulder. They need the way to access the car. Otherwise, the cars are going to be out in the middle of the road. And I don't know how they can with a 6-foot wall next to them.
I'm just kind of.
Well, it's a lot of the issue is,
No?
a lot of the issue is that these were all things that could have been addressed if they'd approached us before they built it. And actually Brett was down there doing another inspection. I don't remember what it was. Maybe, maybe plumbing inspection, and he saw the forms and he said, "What are you doing there?" And they said, "Oh, we're about to pour the retaining wall." And he said, "You know, what retaining wall?" And he said, have you had any open form inspections?" They'd already done the footing, and they said, "We don't need inspections for a retaining wall." And he said, "Yeah, you do." And it kind of went from there.
And if you do a poured concrete retaining wall, you're supposed to have a toe that's almost matches the height going back, and then you fill on top. There's gonna be a lot, and you're supposed to have weeps through the wall to allow release of hydrostatic pressure. If they didn't do all these things, I mean, what engineer is gonna sign off on it afterwards? You're gonna, so that would have to be part of the equation, and any.
Right,
engineer worth-
and this is a wall. The reason they need the wall and the reason it needs to be where it is because that whole front lawn is a pressurized drain field, I believe. And so there's going to be a huge hydraulic load on the uphill side of the wall. So it's definitely should have been engineered pretty thoroughly.
And if it, or to push over in the freeze thaw, drop onto pedestrians or cars, it's a huge structural liability. But that's just the one item that I know of. I don't know what else they did. There might be tons of it.
And once you start opening it up.
Yeah.
So
So,
this is coming to us, you said, as of today.
thank you, Meg. Okay, well, that's all I have for this evening, unless you guys have something.
Who's doing Wahid?
We haven't been deemed it's complete yet.
Oh, okay.
They got a denial letter, but I don't know where it is after that. They had to get some stuff. They have to do a full application, I guess.
Reed's scaring me.
I know.
You're in darkness over there, Reed.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Hold on, I'll turn on a light.
No, it's okay.
No, don't do that, please.
We're fine.
Okay, well,
done.
thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy this warm night, if you can. There he is.
Yes.
All
We're
right.
done, Reed.
Okay.
Well done.
Thanks for joining us. I did
Hope
tell
you
didn't
feel
have to.
better.
The formal ending, we all agree. We're out.
All right.